I genuinely do not care what the Republican Party says about Gen Z. They call us weak, they call us lazy, they call us ineffective, and it's like, do you really think that's gonna stop us? Their insults don't faze my generation. Gen Z is focused on change, Republicans are focused on trolling, and that's the difference. My generation has beaten the Republican Party in 2020, 2022, and 2023, and we're gonna do it again in 2024, whether they like it or not. The Gen Z wave is here, and it's only getting bigger, and that should terrify the Republican Party.
We all know this kid, right? And how about this one? Well, as many of us have suspected for a long time, looks like those two are partisan hacks bought and paid for by the DNC to the tune of around $210,000. If you check their bios, both of them are managed by a company called Palette Media. And you might think, well, why is that important? Because Palette Media received direct payments by the DNC totaling $210,000.
Now here's another point of view. Tonight, Jerry Springer.
Thanks, Allison. Back when I was the mayor of Cincinnati, the neo-Nazis, knowing I was Jewish, figuring this would be a good test, applied for a parade permit. They wanted to march through our downtown on a Saturday afternoon. Well, I didn't know what to do. You see, much of my family was exterminated in the concentration camps of Germany during World War II. And I didn't think, in respect to my parents, who were survivors of it all, that I could go along with the permit. And yet I knew my constitutional obligation as mayor. So what was I to do? I called my folks. I would respect their wishes. I didn't tell them, but I'd already decided if they didn't want me to let the Nazis march, I would resign and let the next mayor approve the permit. But my dad reminded me that this is America, that this is the freedom we sought when we escaped to here. So we must never be a party to silencing any person or any point of view, no matter how despicable. If what is being said is nonsense or mean or spiteful or dangerous, or if the person uttering it is unworthy, let the words and ideas fall of their own merit in the free marketplace of ideas, not because they were silenced or denied a platform. My parents lost their parents and brothers and cousins to Hitler, and yet they still said, sign the permit, let them march.
All right, guys, I got to tell you, CNN is probably regretting putting Bill Maher's show in their primetime slot because they're desperate for ratings. I mean, they're so desperate. They went out and hired Gayle King and Charles Barkley to host a CNN primetime show. Yeah, I mean, again, they are that desperate for ratings that they hired Gayle King and Charles Barkley to do a primetime show. Again, I'm just saying. CNN seems to really be in desperation mode nowadays to get people to watch their failing network, okay? But again, they're probably pissed about Bill Maher, who's a classical liberal, by the way, one of the very few classical liberals left in this country and in the mainstream liberal media, so it seems. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe there are more classical liberals in the general population than we think, but regardless, he had another person that I would probably describe as a classical liberal on the show, Elon Musk, who the far left hates, the Democrat Party hates because he is exposing the extremeness that is coming from the Democrat Party and the far left. And he did just that on Bill Maher's show as he talked about the so-called woke mind virus and how important freedom of speech is, which is why he bought the Twitter platform. And I think that this conversation was fascinating, and I want to highlight it because I think it's important that people hear what Elon Musk has to say. He's one of the very few, again, classical liberals, right, that actually has a major platform that is speaking some sense. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll this conversation between him and Bill Maher because it really is fascinating. Take a look.
It's bizarre that we've come to this point where like free speech used to be a left or liberal value, and yet we see from the in quotes left a desire to actually censor, and that seems crazy. I mean, I think we should be extremely concerned about anything that undermines the First Amendment. There's a reason for the First Amendment. The First Amendment is because people came from countries where they could not speak freely, and where saying certain things would get you thrown into prison. And they were like, well, we don't want that here. And by the way, in many parts of the world, including parts of the world that people might think are relatively similar to the United States, the speech laws are draconian.
England is quite different.
I won't name any countries, but
England, why are we protecting them? They have no First Amendment. It's very easy to prove libel in England, whereas here it's almost...
I love England, but...
Yeah, I do too, but I wouldn't want to say the wrong thing. Or
yes,
you could be sued easier. There are law in France. I think if you deny the Holocaust, which I think is abhorrent, but I also think it should be part of free speech.
Right.
You can be thrown into jail. Okay, so this...
I really can't emphasize this enough. We must protect free speech. And free speech only matters, it's only relevant when it's someone you don't like saying something you don't like, because obviously speech that you like is, that's easy. So it's the thing about censorship is that, sure, for those who would advocate it, just remember, at some point, that will be turned on you.
This woke mind virus, how did it start? Was it bats? Was it a escape from a lab? I mean, what is your assessment of what? Because it's fairly recent. How did it start and why?
I was trying to figure out where it's coming from. I think it's actually been a long time brewing, in that it's. I think it's been going on for a while. The amount of indoctrination that's happening in schools and universities is, I think, far beyond what parents realize. And I sort of came to realize this somewhat late. The experience that we had in high school and college is not the experience that kids today are having, and hasn't been for, I don't know, 10 years, maybe 20 years. So,
aren't parents themselves also a big part of the problem?
Well, I suppose in some cases that parents, but I think like the parents are just generally not aware of what their kids are being taught, or what they're not being taught.
But they're letting the kids think that they're equal.
I mean, yeah. Let me give you an example that a friend of mine told me, which his daughters go to college go to high school in the Bay Area, and he was asking them, like, well, so who are the first few presidents of the United States? They could name Washington, and I said, well, what do you know about him? Well, he was a slave owner. What else?
Right. Exactly.
Nothing.
Right.
Like, okay, maybe you should know more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. That is the woke mind virus. Exactly.
Yeah. So conversations like that really do make me feel better as a conservative, because sometimes I do feel crazy. I'm like, okay, am I not seeing what everybody else is saying in regards to what seems to be overwhelming support for extremism that's coming from the left? Again, I don't think so. Okay, I think that you just have a bunch of loud radicals on the left, but unfortunately, what's happening is that, like Elon Musk said, the radicalism on the left is indoctrinating children and making Gen Z extremely, extremely, extremely woke. And we're going to look at some numbers here, because this is kind of disturbing, guys. And I'm going to show you guys how disturbing it is. I mean, first, I've talked about this, the LGBTQ numbers, right? Which, again, there's nothing wrong with being LGBTQ. I want to make it clear. The main issue is that this also goes along with radical left-wing political ideology, okay? They go hand in hand, okay? That's what's going on here, okay? They package radicalized views on this issue right here, sexuality, gender, race, okay? A whole bunch of issues. They package it together. And when you have children that are overwhelmingly identifying with this stuff, again, what it signals is that, well, these people are also overwhelmingly liberal, okay? They're overwhelmingly woke, because, again, it's all packaged together, which means that you're going to get support from Gen Z, overwhelming support from Gen Z for left-wing authoritarianism, okay? And that's what Elon Musk and Bill Maher was discussing when they talked about censorship and free speech. You don't have free speech on college campuses anymore, because college campuses is overwhelmed by Gen Z. Gen Z, because they identify with this stuff, right? A lot of them are LGBTQ. They don't want any criticism of the radical policies that come along with it, because I don't really care about who people like to sleep with. I don't care if you like your genitalia or what. I don't give a damn. You know, I'm not trying to outlaw you know, being LGBTQ. I'm not trying to outlaw that. But, you know, what comes along with that just happens to be radical policies. Like, for example, again, censorship of speech, you know, biological boys competing against biological girls in sports, allowing kids to get sex change operations and to take hormones, having teachers talk to kids about sex and stuff like that. All those radical policies that come along with that is my issue, not the lifestyle in and of itself. I don't care what you do. I don't care who you like to sleep with. I don't care if you're an adult, if you want to, you know, change your genitals. I don't care. The problem is the radical left-wing policies that come with it. Okay, that's the problem. And it's not even just the social stuff, right? Again, think about some of the policies that we have, like defund the police, how that is destroying some of these inner liberal cities. Okay, being soft on crime, that comes from woke progressive extremism. Okay, this idea that the system is systemically racist, right? Like, think about all the money we spend in the government, all the socialism, right? Like the national debt. Okay, all this stuff that we're seeing, these policies that the left is voting for, it's destroying the country, right? Again, we're not just talking about social stuff, we're talking about other things as well too, okay? It's just that when you see these types of numbers in regards to the generational gap and just how much the people that identify as LGBTQ has grown over generations, this is not natural, right? This is not something that happens naturally, okay? This is something that clearly you can see is happening because it's something that is being pushed in school. The woke mind virus is being pushed in school and is making kids, you know, identify with this. Which, again, look, I don't think there's anything wrong with LGBTQ. I'm just saying, look at the gap here. Almost 20% of Gen Z is LGBTQ. Again, how does that happen, right? Compared to traditionalists being 1.7%, baby boomers 2.7%, Generation X 3.3%, millennials 11.2%. You can see the overall degradation in, you know, traditional American values. I mean, look, people don't value patriotism that much anymore. Okay, they don't value religion. Okay, they don't value having children. They don't value community involvement, but they value money, right? They do value money more than they used to. Again, this is not good. And then when you top it off, right, what polls are showing is that as generations get older, they still become more conservative, right? They become more conservative. They realize that what they believed was wrong. However, Gen Z is more indoctrinated than ever. Take a look.
So let me show you here. We got Gen X and millennials. Both were around to vote in 2012, and they're around today. And as you can see, in their 20s and 40s, this is the way Gen X was voting, D+7 in 2012, millennials, D+16. 10 years later, as they get into their 40s and 50s, late 30s and 50s, look at what you're seeing. Gen X becoming a Republican generation here, R+12. Millennials moving slightly to the right here, still a Democratic constituency, but just D+6. But right now, this is something that Republicans ought to be concerned about, because look at this gap among Gen Z. Obviously, they've only been voting, some of them really 2020, 2022, but D+31 in here. Obviously, even over time, if you see that millennials started at a D+16, Gen Z starting at a D+31. That is something, if you're a Republican, this ought to scare you these days.
Yeah, it does, right? It actually really does scare me, because that is the reason why the Democrat Party is not a party of classical liberals anymore, right? That's why it seems like classical liberalism is dead in this country, because Gen Z is just overwhelmingly Democrat, okay? I mean, we're talking about a gap that is historic. And the sad part is, guys, is that the age-old trend of as you become older, you become more conservative. Well, why is that? It's because you become wiser. You start paying taxes. You start living life. You learn more about the world and how the world really works. You're not living in cuckoo for Cocoa Puff land like most of these kids are living in college. Okay, you actually realize, okay, this is how the real world works. Life experience. You become more conservative. The problem is that these people, these young people, are being encouraged to go out and vote for radical extremism that when they get older, they're likely not going to agree with. Right? So they don't even know. They don't even understand. They don't even comprehend that when they get older, they're not going to agree with the radical extremism that they agree with now. And that's the sad part about this, guys. Okay? And that's why what Elon Musk is saying is so important. Free speech is so important. Because these people, that generation, they don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in traditional American values. And they want to silence any criticism of their ideology, what they believe in. They don't want anybody changing their mind, right? Democrats on board with that because, again, Gen Z is overwhelmingly woke. I'm just saying, I mean, this is what we're dealing with here, guys. We have to understand what is happening to our country. And our country, quite literally, is being ran by radical Generation Zers who don't have life experience, who, as they get older, will become more conservative, will regret the things they believed when they were younger. They will realize what they believed is wrong, right? Again, it's just a damn shame they can't see it today. But again, all this stuff is being done institutionally, where they're being taught to be woke. They're being taught to be more progressive. They're being taught to vote Democrats. Our schools are not creating kids who can read and write and do math. Our kids are dumber than ever. They can't critically think. They're being told what to think, even in college, where, again, before you were taught how to think, not what to think. Right nowadays, you're taught this is what you're supposed to think. But yet they know all about political activism, right? They know all about TikTok. They know all about the major Democrat priorities. And this is what I try to tell you guys. Well, why is, corporate America so woke? It's because, like I try to tell you guys, Generation Z is overwhelmingly woke, and the baby boomers, because baby boomers are dying out, they're transferring a massive amount of wealth to Gen Z. A massive amount of wealth. So they're overwhelmingly woke. They're getting richer, right? Not because of money that they earn, because of money that their parents earn. One of the hardest working generations. And because of that, again, that's why you have this radical change and shift happening in this country. That's why it's become institutionalized at every level. So again, I mean, it's kind of sad, right, to think about, but it's important to understand what is happening. Again, this is why people like Elon Musk are so important. This is why, again, free speech is so important. Again, I really do appreciate Elon Musk, even though I might not necessarily agree with him on everything. He is one of the few sane people, left, right, that I think is really going to do, good in this world objectively. It's crazy how a guy from South Africa, who's not even originally an American, believes more in traditional American values than the youngest generations that we have. Again, it's a shame. It really is. And furthermore, this is why you see efforts from the mainstream liberal media establishment to censor people like Elon Musk, to censor people like Andrew Tate, for example, who do overwhelmingly appeal to millennials and Gen Z, right? These are millennial and Gen Z guys, okay? That's who they appeal to, and that's why you see so much pushback against them because, again, they're a direct threat to the narrative, right? They're a direct threat to the agenda, and the woke powers that be, they can't have that, right? They can't have that. So I'm just saying, again, kind of sad to think about, but it is what it is. It's important to understand we're moving in the wrong direction because we have young radicals that are running this country into the ground. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.